In 2013, a mysterious epidemic spread globally, inducing an irrational fear of outdoor exposure that proved fatal within seconds. Consequently, streets worldwide turned into desolate wastelands devoid of human presence. Mark Delgado, confined to his workplace for 3 months, sustained himself with cafeteria provisions while assisting colleagues in digging a passageway in the parking lot, potentially providing access to safety via the subway. A car burglary involving the theft of a GPS ignited Mark's anger, driving him to increase digging attempts. Remarkably, this increased determination led to a breakthrough, enabling their escape from the building. As preparations for the journey started, Mark noticed his boss, Enrique, concealing the stolen GPS, urging a private confrontation and awakening memories of their past interaction. Months ago, the man was hired to address the company's productivity issues and gained a reputation for being merciless in his treatment of employees, terminating them without hesitation. When he called Mark to his office, he scolded him for the project's delayed progress, dismissing any challenges related to programming and issuing an ultimatum. Mark must complete it by month's end or face dismissal. Mark works late into the night at the office, struggling with his code and growing increasingly frustrated with each failure. His girlfriend Julia phoned, informing him she and her friend Andrea were closing their shop, and Mark assured her he would join them for dinner. Yet his computer crashed, prolonging his stay unexpectedly. Upon finally returning home, he noticed his neighbor peering out as he entered, and Julia had already eaten dinner alone. Finding her crafting toys for her shop, Mark observed a puppet she contemplated keeping for the future, urging her to bring out the topic of starting a family. Mark responded that it wasn't the appropriate time. Later that night, he struggled to sleep and resorted to watching TV, where he caught a news segment about a Canadian teenager who documented his suicide after 6 months of confinement at home due to fear. The following day at work, everyone was tuned into the same video clip, causing Mark's colleague Rovira to anxiously leave. Another coworker remarked on Rovira's unchanged clothes and lack of hygiene for several days. In the present moment, Mark discloses to Enrique his desire to locate his girlfriend, stressing the necessity of using GPS to navigate the subway tunnel since phones no longer receive signals. He proposes a bargain to Enrique: accompany him to find his girlfriend, and in return, Mark will provide him with all the provisions stolen from Rovira's locker. Initially hesitant, Enrique swiftly agrees when Mark threatens to expose the stolen GPS to everyone. Bidding farewell to their colleagues, the duo venture into the subway tunnels. Although the GPS functions adequately, they conserve its battery by relying on a subway map for navigation. The tunnels are crowded with people, and the sound of gunshots prompts them to quicken their pace until they reach a crowded station, overflowing with survivors. Suddenly, a teenager snatches Enrique's bag containing the GPS. Mark and Enrique give chase through the station, pursuing the thief upstairs and evading a fire hazard until they reach a secluded area beyond the rotating gate. The teenager reunites with 3 men, including his brother, a former police officer armed with a gun. As the city plunges into darkness, the cop forces them to kneel while his brother retrieves the GPS from the backpack. Seizing the opportunity, Enrique fights with the cop for control of the gun, while Mark tackles the teenager and retrieves the damaged GPS from the floor. Securing the bag closed, Mark ducks behind a column while Enrique wrestles for the gun from the officer, dispatching him before injuring his accomplice with a gunshot. They regroup, swiftly blending into the crowd enveloped by darkness. Halting by the stairs, they attend to Enrico's wounded hand and assess the GPS's functionality post-fall, relieved to find it's still operational. Mark notices Enrique retaining the gun and briefly fears that he'll leave them, but Enrique reassures him of honoring their agreement. Mark's thoughts drift to the days preceding the lockdown. One morning, while leaving his apartment for work, Mark heard a swarm of flies emanating from his neighbor's apartment, finding the door slightly opened. Investigating, he encountered a strong smell coming from the bags of trash littering the space. Startled, his neighbor confronted him with a knife, questioning Mark's sudden interest after months of indifference. Mark learned of his neighbor's prolonged confinement, paralyzed by fear. Later at work, Mark witnessed Rovira's dismissal for sleeping in the office and neglecting to return home. Attempting to intervene as guards escorted Rovira outside, Mark suspected a dire situation. Despite his efforts to have Rovira taken back inside, it was too late. Rovira succumbed before help arrived. Following that, Mark inspected Rovira's locker and discovered a bunch of survival essentials, including a flashlight, gas canister, and canned food. Later that evening, he recounted the events to Julia and expressed his concerns about the gravity of the situation. Julia provided comfort, and they shared an intimate moment. Returning to the present, Mark awakens from a nap to find Enrique absent, leading him to believe that he left them. However, Enrique soon reappears, safeguarding the GPS in a plastic bag to shield it from water damage. The duo ventures back into the subway tunnels, where Mark attempts to collect insights into Enrique's destination, but Enrique remains silent. Mark also observes Enrique meticulously preserving the seeds from his meal, notably apples. Shortly after, aided by the GPS, they locate an entrance to the sewers and leap in, landing safely in the water below. Utilizing the GPS once more, they navigate their way and eventually reach the vicinity beneath Mark's apartment building. To gain entry, they devise a simple plan, suspending the gas canister from the ceiling pipes and detonating it by gunfire. Despite Enrique's initial failure, Mark takes over but suffers a minor injury to his ear due to the blast's intensity. Upon successful detonation, they ascend the debris and breach the building, finding it overflowing with refugees. Mark's former neighbor remains in the adjacent apartment, but Mark's door is damaged. As they attempt to gain access, they encounter resistance from an unidentified individual speaking a foreign language, provoking Mark's frustration as he vigorously pushes against the door. Seizing the opportunity presented by the man's exposed hand, Mark bites it, causing him to recoil and granting Mark entry into his home. The man retaliates with a knife threat, met by Enrique drawing his gun, resulting in a tense standoff until the man's wife and daughter intervene, diffusing the tension. The daughter, fluent in their language, explains the dire situation. They had no other place to go, thus occupying the vacant apartment.